Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together all the way from Chicago, Illinois, Gwen Jones.
I got the call about a year and a half ago from my ex. He told me that an old coworker and mutual friend of ours had passed away suddenly on that day. I was saddened to hear that news. It kind of took me by surprise. And I said, can you please just let me know when they make the funeral arrangements? I was kind of torn up. He said, yeah, sure, I can do that. And by the way, can I give you a call tonight? And I was like, yeah, sure, okay. So after we got off the phone, I realized I hadn't spoken to that sucker in over a year. He called me that night, and the conversation was awesome. We talked about our old friends, and then the conversation went to the past, and next thing I know, it was a 2-hour conversation. When we got off the phone, I realized, that was good. And I started thinking, and I took a stroll back down memory lane. You see, I met him over 19 years ago. We actually worked together. I was checking him out, he was checking me out, all that good stuff. And finally, he asked me for my number. Now, he was really, really cute. Really, really cute. He kind of looked like Chadwick Boseman. You know, T'Challa from what? From Black Panther. So I wanted to say, Wakanda forever, baby. So he was tall, not too thick, not too thin, super chocolatey, right? And then he had that boyish grin that drove my mama's baby girl crazy. So he asked me for my number. We started talking on the phone all times of night, epic conversations, which moved into us going to dinners and long drives and a lot of making out. No sex, but just a lot of making out like two teenagers. And I was in my 30s by then. So all of this happened over a 4-month period. I was in heaven. And then all of a sudden, my phone stopped ringing. But it took me, because I was in heaven, it took me about a week to realize I hadn't heard from that sucker. So I'm like, let me call him, because by then we no longer worked together. So I knew nothing had happened to him, because our friends would have told me, hey, he got ran over by a bus or something. So what happened is, I'm like, where is he? And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the very first of one of those times, when you're in an off and on again relationship with somebody. Well, this time it was definitely off, right? So this person would show up about every 6-7 months. And guess what? I let it go on for 7 years because, I had liked him when I first met him. I did. I'm not ashamed. I did. I liked him. Remember I told you he was cute and Chadwick Boseman and all that, good look and all that stuff, right? So eventually, that whole up and down and in and out, I finally got tired of it. And what I ended up doing was I refused to even see him for 8 years. Now, he would still call me at least 2 to 3 times a year to check in. I talked to him, but I wouldn't see him. So in February of 2017, he reached out to me, and he said, hey, I want to see you. I'm like, okay, maybe. We can get to that later. Well, it took him over a month of phone calls and text messages. I mean, sometimes 2 and 3 times a day. I'm like, I'm going to cut this phone off. Finally, he crept back in. And we went to dinner. He said, hey, I'm a changed man. Okay, all right. Someone said, he's lying. I'm like, I'm going to get to that, boo-boo. I'm going to get to that. So, that was February when he called. I finally went out with him in March. We had the best time, March, April. He finally told me after all of these years, 2 months later, that he loved me. I was like, okay. And he said, hey, I want you to think about moving in with me. I'm like, whoa. All right, so let me think about that, brother man. So I really still liked him a lot. But I wasn't no fool. I wasn't leaving my place till I had to stay. So I said, let me see how this will go, but I'm not going to move in with you. So remember, February, we talked. March and April, he asked me to go, that he told me that he loved me, and then he asked me to move in with him. So March, April, May, then June, July came. Well, we were supposed to go to an all-white party, July the 8th. He called me that Monday of the week. He said, yeah, I haven't found my white shoes yet. I go, okay, well, let me know when you find your shoes. Well, Wednesday went past. He hadn't found any stinking shoes. We live in Chicago. It's white shoes everywhere. So Thursday, and I'm texting and calling, and I'm getting no answer from that sucker. So by Friday, I'm like, now I got to find somebody else to go to this party. So I realized what happened in the blink of an eye. It was another one of those times. But he didn't let me in on it again. So I went to the party. I got pictures. I looked like I enjoyed myself, but I was sad. I got to church that next day, and I'm standing in the choir stand. God's power is really high in the church. People are crying, and I'm sitting there bawling my eyes out. But it wasn't because the spirit was so high. I just couldn't take it, and I was like breaking. Later on that afternoon, my brother, who sat in the back of the church, he would notice that because he's always looking out for me. He goes, what happened? And I had to finally break down and tell what happened. And he was like, listen. I go, I feel like a fool. Because guess what I realized? I realized that I played a big part in my heartbreak this time because I let that sucker back in, right? But I made a decision after that Sunday. I said enough was enough. 3 weeks later, I'm training at work. His text message notification, I know it because it's different from everyone else. I'm training a class, I'm just talking, and I hear this. And my co-facilitator, he knows me so well. He knew my body language must have changed. He was like, okay, class, we're gonna take a break. He said, what happened? I said, that sucker just text me. He texted me a 3-page text. Oh, I'm not ready for a relationship, seriously. And I know you're disappointed in me. And I'm like, delete. And I told him, bring them back from break. I'm ready to train again. So, after that, I decided, no more. I'm gonna move on with my life. So after that, moving on, that's when he reached back out a year and a half ago. A year, yeah, he did. That sucker called me. But that's when he called me to tell me about the death of our mutual friend and old coworker. And I was like, okay. So remember, we had that good conversation that Thursday night. So the next night, he texts me, that WYD, what are you doing? And I go, I'm just leaving with some friends, having fun. And I said, hey, guess what? What are you doing? Can we meet up and can we go and grab something to eat? I asked him, yeah. So we did. He said, meet me at my house and we'll ride together. I'm good. This was a year and a half later. So we got to dinner and I said, listen, I just want to let you know, we've known each other for almost 20 years. I don't hold any grudges. I'm not mad at you. I wish you the best because if I'm not the person for you, then that means you're not the person for me. And I don't want you to hold me back, right? So we ate dinner, had the best conversation. He drives me back to his house. He says, hey, why don't you come in for a little bit? We can finish talking. And I was like, okay, we're in a good place. I'm in a good place. I'm in a real good place here. So we went in, we pulled out the records, we were laughing, talking, dancing, listening to music, and then he put the slow song on. So when he put that song on, I was like, okay. He said, you know, Gwen, you know, I'm not seeing anybody seriously. And I'm bending back because he's trying to, I'm like, enough, we just went to dinner. He bent down and he kissed me. And I said, okay, guess what? It's time for me to go. He was like, oh, baby, no, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. You need to just go on and spend the night here. I go, brother. No, I need to go home, but I thank you for dinner, and I thank you for the conversation because it was needed face to face. He walked me to my car and tried to kiss me again. I left and went home. He called me. He said, I wanted to make sure you made it in the house, and guess what, Gwen? Please think about giving us another chance. I chuckled on the phone. Good night. So that was that Friday night. I never heard from him to let me know when the funeral was. So I had to reach out to our other friends and family. I get to the funeral, but I was going to go just to the wake, and I literally heard the voice of God say, go to the funeral. I went to the funeral 10 minutes before it was beginning. I walked in the door. They said, hey, Gwen is here. She can sing. I go, don't y'all have some people on the program already? They was like, yeah, but the husband wants you to sing if you came. I said, okay, I'm going to be obedient, and I'm going to go up front, and I'll wait for them. But I didn't see my ex. They start waving, hey, come up here with us. I turned to my right and saw him. He walked in, and he was escorting a beautiful young lady in front of him. I go, who brings a casual acquaintance to a funeral? But when I saw them, my heart started to beat so fast and my head started spinning because 6 days ago, that sucker told me that he wasn't seeing anyone seriously, right? So I'm like, what the? Wait a minute, I'm in church. I can't say that. So the funeral started, the people started singing, and I'm like, oh, it's time for me. So I get up. And I spoke very nicely of the couple. This man, he took care of his wife until she passed away. I mean, their love was awesome to witness. But I got up, and he sat in the back of the church. When he saw me, he didn't come up front with the rest of us. He went to the back row. So when I got up to sing, I had to look at them. So my heart was pumping fast. My head was spinning. I had to close my eyes because I didn't want to see them. So this is what I did. I sang, because the Lord is my shepherd, I have everything I need. He lets me rest in the meadow's grass. Then he leads me beside the quiet stream. He restores my failing health. And at that moment, my head stopped spinning. My heartbeat resumed its normal rhythm. I opened up my eyes because I didn't care about seeing them anymore. Something changed. The power of God rested on me. And I started singing with my eyes open. And he helps me to do what honors him the most. That's why I'm safe. That's why I'm safe. That's why I'm safe. Yeah. I'm safe in his arms. So I ran back to my seat because it was crazy. There was no choir in the choir stand. The church sang the background. God's power hit that place. I got my coat and I walked out because I had to get back to work. But I went to that back row and I tapped that sucker on his shoulder. Yes, Jesus was still in me, but he was still a sucker. So I tapped him on his shoulder. Hey, how you doing? He just looked straight ahead. He didn't even look my way. I know all this. He didn't look my way. So my mama taught me right. Since he came with somebody, I tapped her on the shoulder too. I said, hey, how you doing? She said, hi. She had an engagement ring on her finger. He wasn't seeing anybody seriously 6 days ago, so he must have got engaged the night before. So I wanted to walk back over there and smack him in his ear so hard that his ears would have rung until today, this Valentine's Day. But I didn't, because my mama raised me right, and I would never disrespect the house of God. So I walked out the door, beautiful August day, sunny, and I realized something had just died at that funeral. That 19-year-old relationship, off and on again foolishness ship, lying ship. Well, guess what? That ship had just sailed, right? Yeah, it sailed. And I walked out of that door with dignity, and I said, God, I thank you. I got my freedom that day. I closed that door, and I never opened it back up. Thank you.
Gwen Jones. Gwen Jones. How many people have been like attached and addicted to love? And we understand that one. Okay.